Okay, we are looking at 29 days into our 1962 Chevy pickup. Today we're going to go ahead and we'll get the engine running, we'll double check the valves, we'll break in our lifters, and then we'll just keep bolting stuff on, doing a little bit of painting too, so stay tuned. So another part I stole off of Ron's 1961 Chevy pickup is his steering wheel, and it's in really nice shape, but with the dash all painted and everything like that, it doesn't quite pull up to snuff. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this too. So I guess it's kind of a cautionary tale really when you get into some of this stuff. You know, one thing begets another, and that begets another, and sometimes you're chasing tails. So make sure you don't go too overboard, which I typically do, but it generally pays off. So the center of the steering wheel right here, it has to be clean metal in order for your horn to work correctly. So while we're messing with all this, we'll okay, so I'll get this masked off here. On the corners where it's difficult to get large paint like this to curve, I simply just put it over in a mask section. Now I'm going to just carefully cut that out with a razor. You have to be real careful, because if you dig into the paint, and then you're going to give yourself problems. So just when you're painting, you got to keep an eye out for little things like this right here. It just doesn't look like that much. You wouldn't think about it necessarily, but if you don't put tape behind it, then of course the overspray is going to go through and hit on the back and ruin your work. So it's always the little things. Typically on these old engines, over the years, people will have used the crankshaft harmonic balancer bolt down here to turn the engine over. The bolt can only stand that for such a long time that it's just going to snap off. So that happened a long time ago. There's a ton of grease up there. We cleaned it all out, drilled out the hole. Now we're just tapping in, and we'll be all set up. Okay, and that's what that looks like when that's all done, nice and pretty like. Okay, so again, I'm going to go ahead and unwrap this after it's had enough time to dry, and the paint's not wet, but not so dry that it's all hardened, because then it will basically glue down your tape. Also, when we're outside messing around with grease and oil and stuff like that, grease and oil do not get along with paint, so you have to make sure you constantly wash your hands in between doing jobs like this. Another thing you have to watch out for is the tape peeling off the paint if it didn't get enough time to dry or whatever. So I'm going to need to mask the black off and shoot the white now. While the paint's dry, we'll go ahead and start selling stuff up. I got another radiator coming from Brothers. I'm just sticking this on here for now. This is a pretty good radiator, but you can see telltale signs where it was leaking. So let's either get this one here record for a couple of big bucks, or just get another one. They sell them aluminum, or they sell the old style school. So if I'm doing a mod, then I'll go ahead and get the aluminum. If I'm doing a nice classic like this, it's the old school. So when you get the mechanical style temperature sending units, they won't fit into the straight hole there. They'll send you a little kit that looks like this, miscellaneous sizes that will adapt in there. So you just pull out the right size and screw it in, and then you'll put the other piece on top. And on this style of temperature sending unit, you can use the plumber's tape on it, but if it's an electrical, then you don't want to. Now I'll set my gaskets on my valve covers here, and I'll do this just like you saw me do pretty much everything else. I'm going to kind of paint it onto with my finger, and I'm just putting a nice light coat. I'm not getting crazy about it. We want to make sure that when we tighten it down, it doesn't splooge all over the place. And we only do one side of the valve cover gaskets generally. If you're having a problem with it leaking or something like that, then you might do both sides, but just do a thin coat. But typically you won't put another coat of silicone on top of this gasket. In other words, the gasket side that is going to be on the engine, we're not going to put any silicone on. And the reason that we do that is if you do it on there, then it can be kind of a drag to take off and then clean up in the future and stuff like that. So usually it's just going to make too much of a mess in the future to mess with, so we'll stay away from it. And by doing this with your finger, it gives you more control. You can feel how thick it is, and so you can put on more or less as needed. Make sure your holes are lined up. And kind of smash it down and move it around a little bit so that the sealer gets covered good. Okay, make sure my holes are set. Now I'll just go ahead and I'll lay this out in the hot sun upside down, and it'll get stuck up on here nice. Okay, so this time I'm just going to fill this up with water. All I'm doing is breaking in the valves, and so when I'm doing stuff like this, I like to just put water in it, and then I'll drain it all out, and then I'll put in the coolant. This way, hopefully we get any last minute dirt out of it. Somebody been working on the steering column in the past. The only problem is that they got it just a little bit too high up, so we're just going to move it a little bit down. To do that, just loosen this bolt right here, and we got a couple inside. Okay, so that bolt outside, and then these two 7/16 right here. Then that generally will let you move this up and down a little bit. Sometimes there's one or two more bolts on there, but okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and put on the steering wheel right here. There is a copper or brass looking ring that goes right here. We need to make sure that that is clean, because if that is not, then our contact button won't hit here and your horn won't work. So before you put your steering wheel on, make sure that it's got these the cam canceling on the back here. Okay, so we make sure that we put this spring back here on, and then this is the little button that makes contact with the brass ring right there. That'll go into the steering wheel right here. Put it on. So now I got my steering wheel on, and I've got, you can see that there can be a gap up in here, so we take care of that gap, and then we'll go ahead and tighten everything down. Okay, so first piece that goes in for our horn is this piece here. It's going to go where it pops up like this. Okay, then we put this in. This notch right here goes at about 5 o'clock. And the holes that you see on this, they're going to line up with 3 holes on the steering wheel. Then we're going to go ahead and put this piece here on. Tighten them down, and then put on the horn. Well, we fill the engine with water. We've got it running. Once it hits 180 degrees, then our thermostat will open up, and then sometimes an air pocket will drop, and you'll have the fluid level drop. So you have to watch it, and when it hits 180 degrees, you'll start to see the water circulating. Once you do that, then you go and top it off and put the radiator cap on. Okay, so we're all done for the day. Everything's looking pretty good. It's running pretty good and everything like that. So tomorrow we'll go ahead and do a final adjustment on the valves after it's warmed up and running. Then we'll start buttoning on some sheet metal. So we'll see y'all then.